Welcome everyone to this webinar, Mobile Audiences, a game changer for advertising. We are going to start by waiting a couple of minutes. So if any of your colleagues could be interested by this session, please feel free to share the link, the YouTube link with them. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Olatz Goikoetxe, and I've been working with MediaSmart for the last 3 years. It's been an amazing journey. Well, while we wait to start this session, I want to present a bit what MediaSmart is and why we are in a very good position to speak about mobile audiences. MediaSmart was built 8 years ago, and we are a DSP, a mobile-first DSP, so experts in mobile. Therefore, the good position to speak about mobile audiences. And we are very focused on automatic measurement of incremental metrics and location technology. So we do have a very strong technology around location targeting and measuring visits, etc. That I believe it's one of its own in the whole industry. So I felt like sharing that with you. So let's start with the agenda for today. So I apologize beforehand because the first two sections about the definition and discover how mobile audiences are created are pretty basic, but as I don't know what's your knowledge on the subject, I felt it was important to get everyone to the same page. And then we are going to speak about what you can do with mobile audiences, some use cases and tools we do have in-house for that. And then also privacy concerns, because every time you mention audiences, especially in Europe, privacy comes out as a concern. So I believe you might have questions about this. And again, about questions, just feel free to add any of those questions on the chat in YouTube, and we will make sure to answer at least some of them online at the end of the presentation. Okay. Also, just wanted to mention that we are running another session of this webinar in the US time zone. So if you felt it was super interesting and you want to see it again, just feel free to join that session. And obviously you can watch this one at any time because it's going to be up and live in YouTube from now on. Okay. So let's start by the beginning, right? So what's a mobile audience? It's simply a group of identifiable mobile devices that usually share data points in the sense of they share a characteristic, which could be, interest or type of publishers they use and see. It could be demographics. It can be any of those things. And actually, it's an easy way of grouping them and then later on using it. Okay. And what type of audiences there are? So there are first, second, and third-party audiences. Simply said, the first-party audience is my data, right? So the data an advertiser owns because they use their own apps or they do their own campaigns, and they do have their data. Always, if you're not using sort of walled gardens that don't let you export the data outside there. But in any case, that's first-party data englobes everything related to the data that an advertiser already owns. Second-party data would be like someone else's first-party data that you can see on the presentation. The idea behind this is that some players or your same environment or another that's complementary can have very interesting data for you, right? So that's what second-party data is about. And then third-party data comes from aggregators of data, what we call our data partners. And the idea, is businesses whose business, again, sorry for the repetition, but whose core business is to create data sets. right? So they have very interesting data sets around audience interest or around things like weather. So you could target, you know, an audience based on the weather it's doing outside, or things like app usage. And I'm gonna come back later on about this, but you know, so that you have the full picture of the type of data you can use with us. And how you identify devices, right? So first thing that usually people, when I tell them, you know, I work in mobile advertising, tell me is that, oh, so do you use my phone number to identify my device? Sadly, we don't, unless, you know, there's actually data providers that can make the matching between phone numbers and UDID, which is the mobile advertising ID, and I will come back later. Then we also have MAC addresses, which basically is the serial number on your devices, so that is unique to the device, and we don't usually use in advertising anymore. And then there's IP addresses, which is, you know, the internet portal addresses. So the address of your connection to internet, it's very common knowledge for desktop. You know, when you use any desktop, you have your IP address that's specific to your device. The good thing about it is that it also brings location data on it. So it's very interesting. And then there's also cookies, which I'm sure you've heard about. So again, not going to be very, you know, specific about the explanation on this, only mention that they only work in web environment, which in mobile is not, you know, the best. And in the sense of it's very hard to do trackings, right? And then they're actually sort of dying. There's a lot of restrictions on cookies that we have to take into account. Like, I've read several articles about the death of cookies, and not the ones you eat, obviously. And there you go. And the last thing, we come to the UDID, or mobile native ID. In Android, it's called Guide, and in iOS, it's called IFA. And it's an identifier that actually you can only access it whenever you are in app environment, and it's only used for advertising purposes, and it's unique for each of the devices. That's why it's so interesting for us to use in advertising. Okay. Then another thing I wanted to go through, I mentioned MediaSmart is a DSP, which might sound, you know, crazy to some of you. So I came up with a simplified journey of, you know, how we buy ads inside of the programmatic environment, which we make part of. I'm going to start with the user. So imagine you are browsing, you know, with your phone, you're using an app, and, you know, you probably already had this experience that an ad pops up. Either because you are going to get, you know, a free life on a game, or just because you are reading free news, and that's how, you know, the publishers can make money out of the content they create, and, you know, the server cost, etc. So all the costs that are related to having a digital media, right? So a user opens an app. In this case, it's a she, so she opens her app, and automatically a publisher will ask an SSP, and SSP is supply side platform. So the people in charge of the supply side in Programmatic, they will automatically, you know, say, hey, I have free space here. Is there any ad that could go here? And, you know, in the ad exchange, and the concept, I'm gonna introduce here the concept of bid stream. Literally is where the bids happen, so a stream like a stream. So actually all of this system is based on bidding. Actually, the protocol we use is called OpenRTB, Open Real-Time Bidding, right? So the bid stream is there, and the DSPs, in this case, MediaSmart is a DSP, but there are others out there, will bid for the ad. okay, and the winning bid will be shown, like it's the ad that will be shown to the user. So advertisers, agency, trading desk will, create campaigns on the DSP, and then automatically we will bid, and then, well, there's a lot of metrics involved, but it's very interesting. And all of this process, and I actually simplified it so there are more players. All of this process takes at around something like 10 microseconds, so very, very quick, and sorry, 10 milliseconds, so it's very, very, very quick. And it's interesting to know how those ads that appear whenever you use your phone are actually bought. And what are the benefits of buying here through programmatic advertising? Basically is that you can make advertising much more effective, right? Why? Because you can buy on user level, which means you can buy one-on-one type of ads and serve different things depending on the place the person is, depending on the type of connection they have, depending on the type of device they have. And I will come back a bit just on the following slide about type of variables you can get through programmatic, and around which you can actually build data sets. So the thing is that you can buy one-on-one to specific devices that match certain characteristics. And actually, since this is so very vast, like it's big, it's a huge environment. There's a lot of mobile devices out there, and there's a lot of people out there. Even like, for instance, in Spain has like 120% of mobile devices in respect to the population. So imagine more devices than people. Well, actually, last time I checked, which was like a year and a half ago, maybe now it's much bigger. I wouldn't be surprised by it. So on top of that, you need very smart technology to be able to, automatically optimize toward the users that work for you, and also automatically track digital events. So things like app downloads or purchases on your e-commerce, etc. So things going digitally, and we can go to things much more basic, like clicks on the ads, seeing a whole video or not watching it. So you have to have a big technology. It's usually done through algorithms. We do have different algorithms inside MediaSmart, and it's something that's around there in the whole environment. And then the other point that's very interesting is that you can actually adjust your strategy to the results of the campaign, on the go, but also during times of change. And I don't believe I really need to explain how important it is given the circumstances we are in nowadays, such circumstances. So, to be able to adjust your strategy on the go is, key for advertising in 2020. And the last thing, and which I mentioned before, is being able to target, to build audiences around variables, right? And what type of variables you can find in programmatic in general. So obviously the user ID, which we use, as the first identifying way of devices. Then the very interesting thing about mobile is that you actually can have geolocation information, right? So because we bring our phones everywhere, like I cannot go out of my home without it. And I imagine, a lot of you also have this same experience. It's very powerful, because if I go to university, that's information that I can use as an advertiser and say, hey, I get to this person. And I'm going to talk about this in the use cases later on in the presentation. So just bear with me, and the other variables you can get, like the type of publisher. So if you are using an app that's dedicated to cars, you're probably car lover. You are interested in buying cars, or in the last hybrid cars that has been created, things like that. Okay, so the type of placement you are buying. So if you want to buy a really big interstitial, so an ad that uses the whole screen, things like that you get. And also all of these is real time, right? Because you might have been browsing, real estate app, I don't know, 2 months ago, and since you bought a house, so you are not interested in real estate anymore, right? So it's very important that all of this is done in real time through time steps. So there you go. Other things you could get, as I was mentioning before, devices, manufacturer, type of model. So if someone has the last, I'm going to say iPhone, but it could be Samsung model, they're probably, early birds, and they really like technology and having the lastest, coolest things, right? Because it's quite like a big purchase. And then also when targeting related to operating system, app versus web, IAB category, which is the category of the publisher. That could be anything. I believe there's like 26 IAB categories that go from hobbies and entertainment to news and politics and things like that. And then also the type of browser you're using. And as a last layer, we also get information about demographics, language, mobile operator, connection types, even SIM card country, right? So that's super interesting if you want to target tourists inside a country, for instance, right? And then just a quick note on demographic. And well, all of these variables are actually either self-declared by the user or self-declared by the publisher. I'll go back to the publisher bit in one of the use cases. But for the demographic part, it's important to understand that it's self-declared. And so, for instance, I have a game on my phone that's actually for my niece, and she's 10. And I actually said to that particular app that I was 10. I mean, as you can see, I'm not 10 at all. But for the people buying ads through that app for my particular device, I will be 10. And I did that because I want to protect my niece whenever she's using the app, because I don't use it at all. But you see, so there could be things not matching. And that's why if you want demographic info, it would be important, to go to third-party data providers. And we are integrated with Nielsen, Ciota, and AdSquare. So any of those, or any of the ones, you usually work with, there's many players out there, and use an audience around demographics. First, because you will get a much higher reach, but also because information will be much more accurate. Okay, so now we identified, we know what variables are out there, how we could create audiences, but what can we do with those audiences once we build them? Okay, so first things first, you can actually target them, right? It seems silly, but to get to the people you really need, the people that's good for you, that is exactly what you need, you have to target those audiences, and then again you will be able to convert those users. So let's imagine you are a gaming app. Okay, so the advertiser is a game. A casual game, and it's interested in people that uses casual games. What they could do, and just to give you an image of the sheer scale of the amount of devices we are speaking, MediaSmart only processes around 1.2 million ad requests per second, which is crazy if you ask me. Per second. So if you actually put that into a day, is almost 100 billion ad requests. And we actually don't have like all the available traffic open because we don't have campaigns in every single country out there. But the sheer amount of traffic there's out there is crazy. Okay. So how do you find the right people? You could say, oh, I'm going to target, gaming apps. And it could be good, it could work for you. It depends a bit on the type of creative you use, etc. But wouldn't it be much more interesting to use an audience of people that use casual games twice a week or 3 times a week or 10 times a week? That type of audience. I believe using that type of audience would give much better results, just because you are sure that not only they have games, which, to be honest, most of us do, but they are very invested in using those games. Okay, another thing you can do, and it's related, is to do retargeting. So imagine you have a banner, someone clicked on the banner and went to a landing page, or to had deep linking to the App Store, etc., something like that. But it didn't convert, like it didn't come to nothing. So you actually can go and say, oh, so I have this whole universe of people that maybe saw my ad or didn't, but I have this small universe of people that actually clicked on my ad. Maybe those, I suppose those are much more interested in my own product, right? So I would go and retarget them. And actually, one of the cool things about Programmatic and about MediaSmart in particular is that once user converted, you can automatically blacklist them. So imagine, someone abandoned his cart. You have a type of app e-commerce thing. So they abandoned their cart, and you want to get them back so that they purchase, right? So you can retarget them until they do, and once they do, you don't spend more advertising budgets in those users, because you want to get new leads, new people buying on your app, right? And this is very related to re-engagement, right? I'm speaking a lot about app advertisers at the moment, but I think it's the most visual way of seeing this. So let's imagine we have an app, okay? So that app has 6 downloads, right? From those 6 downloads, there were 5 app opens and 5 people registered, right? Or devices registered. And from those, 3 purchased within the first week, okay? So we are very happy because we had 3 purchased on the first week. But what do we do with the ones that didn't convert, right? How can we target those? So it would be super interesting to have a re-engagement strategy on dormant users. And these obviously are audiences that you can automatically create along the funnel to get to those users, because chances are that a person that registered on your app but didn't purchase is more likely to purchase than someone that's out there and doesn't even know you, right? So this type of strategy is very interesting, and usually, especially with actually with any of the business, you really do know when users convert and follow, the average conversion times. So you can, give a push to the ones that haven't converted yet, and go ahead to get them, right? So I believe it's very interesting. And the last thing you can do with audiences is to find lookalikes. Okay, this basically is to get a seed, we call segment of users, so an audience, right? And then using algorithms, we do have an algorithm inside MediaSmart, but some of our data partners also have lookalike type of solutions that you could use. Like I'm thinking, for instance, AdSquare. So you have the seed user segment, and then you try to find people that are similar to the ones that are already converting well with your campaigns. So the ones that are giving you the best KPIs, be it cost per install, be it cost per purchase inside the app, be it it can be as complex as you want to make it. And then, we basically check the features on the bid stream. It's very simplified. This is much, more complex in reality, but in the simplified way, this is how it works. Okay, and as a recap, and I believe all of these things, came up when I was saying what you can do with audiences. Mobile audiences can help raise brand awareness because you get to the right people whenever you want to target them with specific offers, increase conversions. Can be anything, installs, purchase, etc. In general, it would, be to engage better the user, and to engage the right people at the right time. And, that's something we actually work towards. So in MediaSmart, we work towards getting the right offer to the right people at the right time and place, right? So that's one of the things, core business, I would say. Actually, I would say it's even the core business in the whole industry. But the idea is to get to that people that's right for you, okay? And obviously, drive customers to your store, to your app, etc. So in general, engage better the user, okay? And this actually comes straight to the use cases. Okay, I hope I didn't lose any of you, and I hope there's questions already. Just remember that at the end of the privacy section, we will have a Q&A. So feel free, to write on the chat any question you might have so far. I know it can be a lot to take in if you never heard about mobile audiences so far. So don't be shy, and please share any of the questions you have. Okay. I'm going to start by a quick overview with the tools we do have in MediaSmart. Okay. So, well, as you can see, we have location, interaction, and time-based audiences available for our customers. I mean, we weren't very original with the naming, but it drives the point of what those tools to create audiences do. Okay, so location-based audiences are audiences created based on the location we see the devices of the users. Interaction-based audiences are based on the interaction the user has with the campaign, and time-based audiences are actually audiences that you can create on top of either location-based audiences or interaction-based audiences, and based on when the user was added to that particular audience, okay? On top of that, you can obviously upload your audiences or use your own DMP. We are actually as far from a walled garden as we could be. So, we obviously provide you with full report, full granularity on all the data you are actually buying through us. So, the data is from our customers, so we don't, we actually can't touch it because of GDPR, but we actually, don't hide anything. And if you are already using a DMP, we do have a very interesting feature, which is an API for data partners. That's actually a breeze to use. Like, I would be able to use it myself, and I'm as far as a computer scientist as you can get. So it's really very, very easy to use. And for someone that's, used to push audiences towards, DSPs or any other type of digital platform, this is very easy. And the other thing we have is our third-party audiences. Okay, third-party audiences, as I was saying, come from data partners. In this case, at the moment, we are integrated with Nielsen, Zeotap, and AdSquare that do have very interesting segments. And our partnership team is also always looking for other providers. So, it might be that we get more providers soon. And the last thing, and this is I'm very excited about, are audience insights. This is a product we launched not long ago, a couple of months, I believe, that actually allows with any of the audiences created inside MediaSmart. So any of the audiences you actually upload to the platform or create through the tools I just mentioned, to create insights, right? And I will just give you a couple of use cases in a couple of minutes, but just for you to have the full overview of what's in there for you. And all of these, I feel I have to mention, is GDPR compliant, and we will go back to the privacy concerns at the end of the session. But, just feel safe to use any of those tools, especially if you are inside Europe, where these tools, where being GDPR compliant is very important. Okay. So location-based audiences, right? Imagine you are a fast food chain, let's say Wendy's, right? And you want to get to the users, users that are more likely to buy your product. Who could that be? So we came with this very simple, but yet it's super powerful, because it's hard to know who buys on your competitor, right? So through location-based audiences, you can build an audience of visitors around the competitor. In this case, we use the example of Wendy's and McDonald's, but serves anywhere in the world for any businesses. And then, obviously, they might be in the McDonald's, right? You could tell me, hey, Olat, but I don't really need to build an audience for that. I would just, use the geolocation information to target those users. It would tell you, okay, that could work, but wouldn't it be much better to create an audience around that, and then being able to target them whenever they're not in McDonald's? Because to be honest, if I'm already eating, having advertising about eating somewhere else, it's not very appealing, right? So it solves the issue of, giving the offer at the right time, right? And then it's very similar for, imagine you want to target people working in finance. Okay, so someone actually this happened in a real meeting, and they were like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to target, geolocate those areas and show them my ad nonstop. And was like, okay, I mean, you can do that, definitely. But wouldn't it be much better to target those people when they are commuting, when they are, taking a rest, they are at their homes, they are not so focusing on work. To be honest, I don't have time to check my phone while I'm working. I just assume everyone else is just the same. So I think it's much more interesting to be able to gather those people, and then target them anywhere else. Okay, and the same can be said for things like targeting. And when I say target, you could be, blacklisting. It depends on whatever your needs are, depending on the neighborhood income bracket. Okay, I believe this is a universal example. So, Beverly Hills is a very wealthy neighborhood in LA. And, you could say, hey, I have a high-end product, let's say car, let's say jewelry, let's say, high-end clothes. So I want to target people living there. And actually, on top of being able to select the actual location, and that's something you can actually do. Sorry, I think I didn't mention, but the screenshot I shared with the whole McDonald's in the US is actually a screenshot from the platform. And on top of that, you can select what hours you want the users to be gathered, right? So you want the audience to be created. Instance, I'm just thinking of this example, but it's very interesting to create audiences on people that go to sports event after COVID-19. So after this crisis, let's hope it's soon, people that go to specific events, people, concerts, sports events, things like that, you could actually build an audience just in that particular place, the stadium, for that particular time frame, 3 hours, 4 hours, etc. I don't know, depending on the length of the event. Okay, so you can do the same for specific neighborhoods, and this again, you can do it comparably in any city around the world. You can just build audiences at night, right? So people that are going to be in those neighborhoods usually should, live there. And then, and obviously this is done through location-based audiences too. And then I believe there's, and this is like an industry-wide, I'm not only speaking about mobile advertising, I'm speaking of advertising in general. There's an issue of how to quantify out-of-home, billboards, mappies, things like that. How to quantify the impact around your out-of-home campaigns anywhere in the world, which I believe is fantastic. We actually do have another way of, measuring the incrementality of exposed versus non-exposed. And, if any of you is interested in this, please feel free to pop me an email. It's actually, on the first slide, my email was there. And the follow-up, we'll do a follow-up email, and I will make sure to add my email so that you can join me. But you can. It's as broad and it can be as interesting as you can make it with a location-based audience, because we do bring our mobile phones, our smartphones everywhere. Okay, so finishing with location-based audiences, I want to give you some use cases on interaction-based audiences. And this is something that's more usual in the industry, I would say, but we obviously can make all of this happen automatically and very easily. So, for instance, you want to target, and it comes again to retargeting type of strategy for your campaigns. So you want to target people that saw half of your video but did not click on it. If they could skip it and they didn't, and they watch half of it, they probably are more interested in it than someone that, again, doesn't know you, right? So it can be very interesting conversion-wise to use that particular segment. And the same can be said for people that registered on your app but did not purchase anything, right? And again, the business rules we allow to do with these audiences are endless. So you could target one group and not the other, one audience and not the other, or target only people that are in two audiences in particular, etc. So it's very easy and it's automatic, because again, here the examples are like it looked like it's only a user, but we are speaking like of a global scale. You could do the same strategy, or actually how do you say this? You could switch the strategy depending on the country or the region or the city, and you can do this automatically everywhere. I believe it's super powerful. And now that I spoke about location-based audiences and interaction-based audiences, as I was saying before, you could actually put a layer on top of that's to get the users that are interested now, right? So I believe this in particular is super interesting for retail business, like a furniture business. I'm thinking IKEA, right? Chances are that if you're buying a bed today, you won't be buying a bed in the next 10 years, right? So being able to gather, the users that are interested in buying furniture today is much more interesting than gathering the users that are interested in buying furniture in the last 6 months, right? Because chances are that they already bought all they need, right? So, for instance, I'm thinking in France, one of the competitors of IKEA is Maison du Monde. So you could, create location-based audiences around the Maison du Monde to get, people to go to IKEA, right? And this, again, applies to any type of business with physical presence and their competitors, right? And what about the digital area of things? Again, imagine you're a game. So you know that whenever someone levels up from the level 25, he or she is going to keep using the game for months, right? So if you already got that in some of the users, hope most of them, you can actually exclude that audience of people, of people that already are active in the last 7 days, because you know that those people don't need anything else from you. Okay. And the last thing, and this I'm very excited about, as I was saying before, are audience insights, okay? So it would allow, with all the things that we've talked about, to compare audiences amongst themselves, only for the ones built inside MediaSmart. And it would give you very interesting insights. So for instance, you are running a football campaign with us, so you have an audience of the visitors to your store. food for or drive to store campaign, like physical type of store. And then you created location-based audiences around your competitors. So you could know that 30% of the people that visited you also visited the competitor number 1, 46 the competitor number 2. And you could also mix it if we do get the information. And I'm not sure I mentioned this, but it's important for all in-app events or digital events that happen outside the impression and the click. So anything that happens afterwards, we need either a server-to-server connection or a connection via an MMP, which is a technicality. But we need for the system of the advertisers to inform us of what we call conversion. You could call it event. So that we gather the information automatically, we blacklist automatically, and everything is smooth. We do need to get the information. So coming back to the audience insights example, you could also see what's the impact of the digital usage of your media, like the app, with the actual impact on the store. In this case, you could see this is just an example that 7% of the people that went to your store also downloaded your app yesterday, right? And it can get as complex and as precise and custom as you need, which I believe is the best part of this tool. And these might seem the same, but just to make sure that I get this point across, is that any event that can be digitally tracked can be actually measured and compared within an audience insight. So imagine in your ad or through your app, you had a coupon with an offer. You could track if that people actually went to the store and visited it also. Right, this is the example of a restaurant, but any of those things you can mix and again do it as custom as you need it. Okay, and now coming to our third-party audiences, and actually, if there's interest in this, I'm super happy to invite any of the partners we have to do a webinar. So again, you can just pop a message on the chat or just send me an email regarding this. But they do have a lot of segments, usually very based on interest, but also as I was mentioning before, there are some segments of like real-time weather targeting, so you can target people that are in an area with more than 25 degrees, things like that. I know that, for instance, AdSquare has it in several countries in Europe, particularly I'm thinking Germany, but that type of thing. In any case, the example I wanted to bring, and this is particularly interesting for app promoters, but it could be for anyone selling product, okay, is that you could be able to target users from apps that don't monetize through advertising, okay? And that maybe sounds a bit weird, but how do you get to the people that actually use digital services? Could it be delivery apps or video on demand that don't have ads, right? You cannot get to those through programmatic. A good way to get into them is via audiences from either of our partners. And obviously, for instance, I'm thinking, I do have Uber Eats in my phone, right? I'm probably an easier target for any other food delivery app than my mother that doesn't know that even there's food delivery apps that she could use on her phone, right? So this is the type of targeting you can do. And I use this example, but the catalog they have for app usage is huge. So again, if you're interested, feel free to pop me a message. And now I'm just doing a quick recap. As I was saying, we do have location, interaction, and time-based audiences. You can upload any of the audiences you already have, and actually download any of the audiences from the campaigns you do to your own business intelligence, and also use your DMP. We also have our third-party audiences integrations, and we do have this tool we just launched about audience insights that at the end of the day, what this particular tool is going to happen, it's going to help you with, is to make more informed decisions. So to have a marketing strategy that really works for you and for the results you are getting through your campaigns, right? Okay, and now I can see, and again, if you have any question, feel free to put it in the chat. But I can see, you know, the brains going there. Okay, so this is super interesting, but, you know, is this legal? Are we doing things right? Can I use this in Europe? So definitely yes. With us, I'm going to start with where does the user give consent? So I just revamped the graph I showed before. And just for you to know that the consent is given at the user level, so user level, and gathered by the publisher. Okay, which means things as funny as I could give consent to one app to track my behavior and not to another one. But this is important, and how do we gather it is through consent signals, okay? In particular, GDPR uses the IAB Transparency and Consent Framework. Actually, there's TCF 2.0 coming up at the end of this month, which will bring sort of more protection to the user, specifically regarding location, okay? And again, if you have questions, we do have a full frequently asked questions that I can forward you, so feel free to you know, pop a message. And then just again, to make sure we are on the same page, the publisher is the one that gathers consent. Obviously, this is applicable. I mean, if you are not in the European Union, this doesn't apply to you, but it applies on any of the European Union countries. And there's also privacy regulations coming. Well, there's CCPA in California, and there's several countries like Australia, New Zealand that are coming with their own privacy regulations that are pretty much similar to GDPR. So this is an increasing concern, and it's important to know that we in MediaSmart, and I used MediaSmart as a processor of the data, we do things right, and that at the end of the day, the responsibility of doing things right is from the media buyer or advertiser, right? So you need to make sure that you actually not use the people that didn't want to be tracked, etc. It makes just sense. For that, we actually prepared a sort of a safety checklist for first-party audiences. This only applies to the audiences you build through your campaigns, okay? Well, and actually through any other means, but in any case, in the case of MediaSmart, as I was saying, this is automatically provided, okay? And the checklist goes as follows. So you cannot target users that opted out of being tracked. The personal information needs to be masked, which only makes sense, right? So that it's not hacked. These include user IDs, IP addresses, GPS information, etc. And then they cannot dynamically be added to any retargeting, re-engagement audience. Again, it just makes sense. And the other one is that you should be able to exclude those users that opted out or don't want to be tracked. So if the aim of your campaign is to track, you know, digital behavior, be it whatever it is, inside an app, on e-commerce, etc. I mean, and there's people that we already know don't want to be tracked. It only makes sense that you know, you don't waste money on those, apart, you know. From it just being common sense. Okay, I hope this really helped so far, and I hope there are some questions. So now's the time to come and, you know, ask any of the questions you might have. Okay, so Ellie, is it better to target bitstream variables or to use audiences? I believe I actually sort of covered these in some of the slides, but in any case, as I was saying, it depends a bit on the complexity and the things you want to do, the goals of your campaign. So you should see it, you know, on a case-by-case level, but definitely, I mean, I would even say, why not doing both, right? So you can use audiences, run campaigns, see how it goes, use A/B testing and see what works better for you. That would be my answer. Definitely use both and use the relevant audiences for you whenever you can do it. I don't know. Okay. So how fresh is the audience data? Thank you for your question, Aditi. It really depends on what type of audience we are talking about. I mean, usually audience data is the same way as we buy traffic programmatically in real time. Audience data should be in real time. Usually, for instance, if we are talking about integration with third-party data partners, it's usually refreshed every day, just because the huge amount of data. If we are speaking about creating a location-based audience, that's done in real time. Like if I create it now, it's going to start gathering devices as soon as it's scheduled to gather devices. So it depends a bit, but everything, as we hurry a lot during the, in general, all of this is real time. Okay, hope that makes sense. I'm super excited. There's a lot of questions. Okay. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. I'm super happy that you find it really interesting. So is it possible to build audiences based on the app user install? Yes, definitely. Like, well, for this, if you own an app, you're probably using some sort of, well, it depends a bit on how you developed it, but chances are that you are using an MMP to see that people install the app and to be able to actually attribute which campaign brought you that particular install. So usually people use MMPs for this. And the MMPs would pass us the information, or well, they do have it themselves. But yes, it's possible and it's easy and it's pretty automatic. So the answer to that is yes. Okay. Hi, Teresa. Thank you very much. Okay, so I mentioned using third-party providers for demo info. Can third-party pixels be applied at DSP level? Yes, definitely. On top of, whenever you run a campaign, at least with us, and we actually support images, banners, videos, audio, you can actually put a pixel on top of the, well, and third-party rich media. Sorry, I didn't mention, but for me, they are just a bit of the same, just coding. Definitely, you can use pixels. We actually support up to 2 different pixels. So definitely you can use third-party pixels within a DSP, no problem at all. Thank you for the question. Okay, thank you, Martin. A lot of your targeting strategy is based on interesting hypotheses, like when this finance. Is it a matter of trial and error? Do you get inspiration from qualitative or survey reports? Actually, it's I wouldn't say it's a matter of trial and error. It's just that it depends a lot on the type of advertiser you are, right? So the type of campaigns you need to do and the type of people you want to get to. Okay, so it will, I mean, I was so open with all the use cases just to, give your minds the possibility to think about, oh, this could be applicable to this or that, etc. But at the end of the day, it will depend a lot on the briefing you get from the advertiser, or if you are an advertiser yourself, on the needs you have in terms of targeting. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Laia. Can I follow users for a day to see if they went to the gym, a bar, or my competitor, and can you build profiles? Okay, so this actually, it's a very interesting question. I do get it a lot from customers and prospects. And the answer to that is that within the European Union, definitely not, just because it's not allowed by GDPR. So we can get a specific data point to this particular user, and actually is generic, so we don't really know Laia went to that particular place. Just in general, audiences went to a particular place at a particular moment, but we cannot follow them around. So because it's not GDPR compliant, and actually we don't do that. Thank you. Okay, I believe we finished, with the questions there were there. I'm very happy that you guys found this interesting. And again, if you do have any question, later on, because this happens to me all the time. Like I finish seeing a webinar, I don't have any question, and then like 5 minutes later it pops up. Just send me an email and I'll be glad to speak with you. Again, thank you for watching. Just as a closing remark, speaking a bit about MediaSmart, as I was saying, MediaSmart is an incrementality-based platform for user acquisition and especially for location drive-to-store type of campaigns. We do have a very good solution for that. Again, we work in the programmatic environment, and what we aren't, and this also, sorry, I specify it like this, but we get this question a lot, so I just want to specify it. We are not an ad network, we are not an agency, and we are not an MMP, okay? So we are a DSP, actually a DSP that's pretty evolved, and we do have very interesting solutions, and I could be speaking about this like for another hour or 2 or 3. So I'm gonna just shut myself. But again, as I was saying at the beginning, we are mobile experts and we work in programmatic and at a DSP level. Again, we are based in Madrid. We do have an office in New York, and we are actually part since February, I believe, of the Apple family. So we are Applers, and Apple is a company that's listed in India, and they actually have very, very interesting digital solutions that, again, I could be speaking about for a couple of hours more. So for the sake of time, I just wanted to give you really like a big thank you. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for paying attention. And again, anything you might need, anything you want to talk with me, I'm open to start any discussion. So again, thank you. And actually, thank you to Adriana, who has been behind the scenes, making sure that everything looked well for us guys. So thank you to her, and thank you obviously to the team. Again, sorry, last announcement. I almost forgot. As I was saying, there's another session of this webinar at the US time zone, and we are actually super excited about this. We're actually launching a connected TV solution. You can already use connected TV ads, buy connected TV ads through us, but we're building this solution that will include multi-screen on the same household, meaning you will be able to show an ad to the user on their TV and then sort of retarget them on their phones and tablets. So we are super excited about this, and we're preparing a new webinar about it. So if you are interested, definitely let us know so that we can send you the proper information whenever this is ready to be launched. Again, thank you very much for your time, and I hope this was interesting for you. Thanks.